Welcome to Business Mastery with Don Kennedy, your quick under 45-minute dose of expert insights and strategies to make a positive impact on your business and life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. So are you known for you? Is your company known for the company? And why it's important as the owner and founder to also have a personal brand for a number of reasons. We're going to talk about all of these things today. I brought Jimi on to carry the conversation. How are you today?
Good, Dawn. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. So can you tell everyone who you are and who you serve?
Sure. I'm Jimi Gibson, VP of Brand Communication for Thrive Internet Marketing Agency. We're actually celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, which is a crazy unicorn in the digital marketing space. And yeah, we just help business owners leverage the power of the internet. And we work with small business owners, mom and pops, solopreneurs, all the way up to enterprise, multi-location, franchise. And we don't specialize in any particular industry. We have certain industries that we consistently work with. But yeah, we just feel like everybody has the right to be able to leverage the World Wide Web and the way to grow their business. So excited to talk about our topic today.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited too. And you're right. The internet has changed things. So before we even get into our topic, because you've been around for 20 years, by the time we're recording, this was 2005. In 2005, I think everyone was still occasionally using AOL. And I think there were the portals and everything was in there and you had to pay to get in there. And you were paying like AOL or Yahoo to host your website so that it would be pushed out to people. Before we go any further, because the internet does not operate that way anymore for business, you don't have to pay to get listed, for example, Google. What changes have you seen there that we need to be aware of? Because we're going to be talking about adding, and maybe not adding, but tweaking an additional brand relationship with the founder himself. In the beginning, the way the internet was structured is the companies had to pay to be hosted.
Yeah, I think you're right. If you dial back in our little time machine all the way back to 2005,
Yeah.
it's a quite a different world that we're in right now. Back then, it was about some black hat techniques of keyword stuffing. Folks used to make keywords transparent on the website so they would show up. There was also a lot of discussions about backlinks, and links are still important, and we can talk about that. Yeah, it was a little bit of the Wild West, and folks who benefited early on sometimes carried that into the future, and sometimes the algorithms over the years have rewarded the good way to go about it and have penalized the bad way to go about it. And I think Matt Bowman, the founder, realized early on the power of organic search over paid search. And a lot of the things that we do are because we have tested and tried and understood what works and what doesn't work and what will get you penalized and what won't. And I think we're at a huge crossroads right now with AI and how search is going. And I wouldn't say SEO is dead. I think it has morphed and changed and mutated into something completely different. And that topic is important for us to understand the right way to do it. And yes, it's changing. I'm not a futurist. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not going to tell you that something that happens today is going to be the same in 6 months, because it is rapidly changing. If you have any awareness of what's going on in the world of digital marketing and AI, you blink and it changes the next day. Happy to share what we see is working and what has worked for ourselves as well as our clients. And I think if you want to succeed in business, you have to have some knowledge of what's going on with AI. And I would say that's the biggest change that we've seen, even more than some of the fundamental algorithm shifts over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll definitely dive into the AI because now we have GEO,
Yep.
these other sort of search optimization things. But before we go there, because our original context was like, why do founders need to have a brand inside the brand? And how is that working? And why is that so important, particularly for internet marketing? There's some resistance sometimes where it's, that's my personal Facebook page, or that's my business LinkedIn, or let's talk about how these all fit together and why it's important, especially for some of the local businesses and the ones that may be regional. When you open the apps, you can see this person over here and you want to relate that person to this over here, again, with the backlinks, SEO and stuff. So we can go into the tech, but tell us first and foremost, why is it so important today in 2025-6 to have a personal brand inside your business and not just push out your personal brand anymore or push out your company brand anymore?
Yeah. And I would say it's never been more important than today for a business owner or founder to have that personal brand. And I know there's going to be a little bit of recoil and folks are going to go, but I don't want to do it. And I'm like, if you're a business owner or a founder, it's a cost of doing business. And I would say it does not stop with the owner or the founder. I would say identifying some subject matter experts within the organization can augment that approach. And I'll explain the soft reasons why, and then I'll explain the technical reasons why. And it really goes down to, in the past, folks thought of a personal brand as, yeah, that would be nice, but I'm not an influencer. That's really self-serving. I don't want to puff myself up. And I get it. And I'm not saying you have to be an influencer, but what's happening right now, and I'll just refer to ChatGPT because I think most listeners are probably familiar with that from content creation, is everybody jumped on the bandwagon of ChatGPT is going to be the easy button and it's going to produce all my content for me. And I would say from a on-site content, whether that be service pages, product pages, a blog that you might have, and then going into social media posts, when you treat AI as your copywriter, it is going to produce very generic, mundane, unemotional, safe content. And if everybody's doing that, what a wonderful opportunity for you to stand out in the crowd and have an opinion and talk about why you started this business in this particular location. What is the history behind it? What are the scars, bumps, bruises, and wins and champagne toasts that got you where you are today? And what we're seeing, and I would say I'm not saying this anecdotally, I'm saying this from the 1,000 clients that we actively do work for, is Google has a structure called EE, experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. And these AI engines and large language models have picked this up in how they evaluate whether they present somebody, a business, as the answer to a question, the solution for a product or service somebody's looking for. And when you are the owner and you are the founder, you are the one that knows all of that and can communicate that. And I also mentioned it's good to have a subject matter expert as well, because they can carry some of that load for you. But when it is very specific content and the authority of owner or founder or VP or COO or whatever the case may be is attached to that content, then that immediately filters through basic organic search that is still around, AI mode. We'll talk about AEO, which is answer engine optimization. We'll talk about GEO, which is generative engine optimization. And I would say if you are willing to put your brain out there and all of your experience, you are going to be way ahead of those who are still hitting that easy button of ChatGPT to create their content. So that's the big kind of answer. And then we can dig in specifically to any of those.
Sure. So I would like to unpack first this idea of what you called safe content. So I know there are people listening who have used ChatGPT for copywriting. And admittedly, I have put things up into ChatGPT to summarize. And I have asked ChatGPT not to necessarily generate our content voice, but to give us like a schedule of things that we should do based on our strategy. What do you mean by safe content? Are we changing the way that we are organizing and loading content, whether it's posts or articles? When you say safe, what is it, stripping out personality, or is it safe as in it's not offensive to anybody? Let's figure out first of all what we mean by safe, because I almost guarantee you everybody in the audience and myself, I fully admit, have used ChatGPT for lots of things related to content.
Yes.
So what's safe? What does that mean?
You touched on some of them. I and the agency have been working with AI from a content perspective since ChatGPT launched. And of course, now we have Perplexity and Claude and Gemini and all of these other tools. They each have their own pluses and minuses. They each have their own ways that they interact with you. Yes, you can create a custom GPT, which is basically a closed environment that you can load in brand information. You can have a different GPT for every client. And yes, it will know the basics of what that brand personality is. Is it more formal? Is it more conversational? Is it got a little bit of humor and snark to it? But there is a point where it will respond back to you and say, I would not recommend you phrase it this way. This is not inclusive. This is not respectful of other individuals, so forth and so on. And so there are filters and governing language around how divisive or how opinionated these large language models will generate content. And so when your brand plants a flag for a particular type of, let's just say, a service, and you have a strong opinion on how that service should be done, and the personality of that business is maybe a little rough around the edges, you're going to have a hard time allowing ChatGPT to write the majority of your content. And it also doesn't know the struggles, the founder's story, the bruises, the scars, all of those things that make that content very rich and gives that experience to the reader. And I would say for many organizations, it would probably look from the surface that it's doing a great job. All the time we work with companies building their websites and they'll say, no, we'll handle the writing. As soon as they give us the writing, we can tell it was written by ChatGPT or a similar type of software. And what it's missing is all the things that I say are safe. It's missing the heart, the emotion, the empathy, the nuance, the humanity. And they may get there. I'm not saying they won't, but right now it just doesn't feel alive. And so I think that is basically what I'm saying. And we'd have to work through an exact use case for me to be able to tell exactly what that is. And yes, it is educated on many specifics. The other thing that can happen, and I'm sure you may have experienced in some of the listeners, is it will hallucinate and it will guarantee you that it's telling you the truth. And if you don't know, then you may put out something that could be very damaging to your brand because ChatGPT said it was true, but if it doesn't know, it's just going to make it up. And so you have to police it and pull and tug. So I know that was probably a little bit longer answer than you were looking for as to what's safe, but I think it's good for people to understand the reality of what's going on and to use it for what it is. It's a tool.
Yeah, trust but verify, right? If you are using ChatGPT for research or anything, always at the end of the prompt, include all original citations so that I can check them. It will put those original citations in there and you can go check them. Yeah, I think that is definitely something we don't delegate to AI. As most people know, I'm also an attorney, and the sanctions have been flying from attorneys submitting things that were done by AI. So it's slightly horrific, but that's another topic. So the question then becomes, now that we know that it's what's safe, you're saying, and what I heard was the founder, the owner, their stories inject that personality into the business. Now, when we have those stories and the personalities, and it'll go into the AEO and stuff later, that's the differentiator of your business really from anybody else's. And in the interwebs, I don't even know how many web pages there are anymore. I don't even know if we could count that high. But for you as a business owner, only putting out there maybe your storefront information, you can be, what I'm hearing is like you could be skipped over because it doesn't have more stories or anything to pull from to answer the questions and do the things we're going to talk about later. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah,
why do we need to add the human piece, I guess, is where I think we're going with this.
Yeah, sure. And you mentioned something earlier about trust but verify, and it will show all the citations. There are certain places that these large language models are pulling from. We've probably all heard the preponderance of Reddit that is a major area that it's pulling from. It's actually started pulling now from social media, where it used to not pull from social media in the past. And so
Oh,
what we're seeing is folks that have sloughed off social media as fluffy, that's the first thing we'll cut in our budget. It's actually becoming much more important. YouTube is also becoming a huge resource, as much as 400 times the weight of other content. And so if you don't have a YouTube channel, now's a good time to start one. You're not too late. So a couple of things. The authority related to that title of owner, founder, CEO, whatever the case may be, that ticks the box for expertise and authority. We talked about the EEAT. The other part is everybody wants to know who's behind the business. We work with a large multinational B2B business. They just hired a new a new CMO, a chief marketing officer. I asked her, I said, what is going to be your first thing that you do? And she says, we need a personal branding playbook for every franchisee. And I'm like, oh, wow. It's no longer about the strength of the franchise. It's about the nuance of that individual owner within that franchise organization. And they've seen that when even a franchise owner, and you talk about, and I won't say this in a negative way, but every franchise is supposed to be the same, right? But each franchise owner has some nuance to their particular market. Why did they buy that market? Why did they move in and buy that market? What areas of that community do they support? Do they have nonprofits that they are involved with from a local aspect? Do you show up at a ribbon cutting for another business that would mention your name? Do you sponsor local organizations? These are all things that can trigger the algorithms to separate who they're going to recommend, whether it be a citation in an LLM or something else. So the other part of that equation and why a business owner or founder needs to be part of that conversation is the combination of all of those things. And the second part of the answer that this new CMO said is when they see a business owner minimally involved in social media and producing content, their referrals increase 30%. And so you think about that, and there's some dollars associated with this activity. And if you've never done it before, it can be a little bit daunting. I have some recommendations on where people can start to produce the right kind of content. And when those referrals start coming and people start saying, I read this article, I saw you on social media, I know that you support this organization, so do I, then it feeds itself and they become excited and go, oh my gosh, I should have been doing this 5 years ago. And I would say the first thing that people immediately put up, no, I'm not going to do this pushback is this is going to take a bunch of time. You probably have people in the organization who know how to film. You don't have to buy a bunch of equipment. Most people have $1,000 camera in their pocket that they carry around every day in their smartphone. There's probably somebody on their team who's managing similar things. And yeah, we just need to talk about it as an organization, but minimally, you should be showing up on a regular basis for all the reasons that I just described.
so I have to ask, is AI the reason for this push of putting the person behind? Is this because of the proliferation or, in your opinion, of like the chatbot customer service and like all of these things where people are like, no, I actually want to deal with a human, or no, I am really tired of pressing 2 to connect to tech support and 3 to connect to billing. Is this what we're seeing? Is this the pendulum swinging from everybody screaming about automation and not really touching your business so much except to keep it operating? And now it's nope, we need the humans. There's some pushback because this is a change that I would say is only within about the last 2 to 3 years that I'm hearing you say this versus I don't know how many other marketing people and people that we've spoken with, maybe not particularly on branding, but they're like, get the funnel, do the automated, put your stuff in, talk about yourself. But really, you can just set it and forget it. and the search engine will find it over time. And as long as you update the SEO, you'll be okay. This almost sounds like we're turning that on its head and saying now you really, as much as there could be some automation and things in there, there are just a lot of things where people want to connect again to the people they're doing business with. And I think that's a pretty marked differentiation from just 3 years ago.
Yes, Dawn, I would say it's a couple of things. And we talked about the soft reasons and the technical reasons. And I would say the soft reasons is there is this overwhelming sentiment out there that the robots are going to take over. And we can go back to the War of the Worlds with George Orwell and Orson Welles on the radio show and all of that. And so there's this feeling like we have to protect ourselves from the robots. I've always been a believer that personal brand is a huge differentiator in a positive way. And what I'm saying is, if you thought it was a little important before, it's really important now. And again, I'm saying this from the 1,000 clients that we have, that those who lean in are actually going to be ahead of the game. And I'm whispering because it is something that not a lot of people are talking about. And it is, if you will, a hack to get in a spot where your company is going to be the one that is cited and the one that is visible. And we get into, and we talked about answer engine optimization, and I'll just mention this right now, that folks are using these various tools. ChatGPT can search the web. Perplexity is an app you can have on your phone. Claude as well. And people may never visit your website. We're calling it the zero-click world that we're in.
Wow.
We also have this agentic approach now, which if you haven't researched that, just type in AI agents. And the agents are actually going, and basically it's a little program that if somebody wants to get, let's just say they're planning a trip to Europe, they can tell this little agent robot, go out and find me the best flight, the best hotel, the best rental car, the best restaurants. And that agent is going to go out and visit all of these websites, get all this information, and then pull that information together and present you with a document that cites the various places where it went. And not only are humans in the future not going to be visiting websites, it's going to be these agents. It's our role to then direct how we want those robots to go do what they're going to do. And so that's the behind the scenes things. I do think that there's an
So hang on a second. I have to sit with this for a second. And I think everybody listening,
sorry.
I just want to make sure that I am like completely understanding. And I just realized as you were talking about this, I have experienced this before. It never occurred to me that the AI agents are going to crawl your website and present the answers to the people looking, and that people are not necessarily any longer going to be searching directly your website, because that flies in the face of everything over the last, I don't know how many years. Build your email list because you own it. Build your website because you own it, right? So you don't own the platforms. Your TikTok can be banned. Your LinkedIn can be suspended. So I just want to make sure this is really clear to everybody listening. What you're saying is these AI agents, if we don't take the time to put in the humanity, the personal brand, the stories, and all the things, and get passed over by these agents, potentially for another website or provider that maybe doesn't have that 5-star review, that's a little, I just need to sit back for a second and maybe have a drink of water. This is really what's happening. I know this is what's happening. I think this is the first time I've heard a marketing professional verbalize very clearly that humans will probably not be directly visiting your website. And I would say this is probably within about the next 5 years.
Oh, I would say less. Yeah.
Less than 5 years. Okay. So now that you gave us that and we sat with it for a second, go ahead with your next. I really want to say that I don't think this is being articulated out there or well known, that this is not just your assertion of needing the personal brand, the AEO, and others. This is not just SEO changes because the algorithm changed again. What you're saying is the way people are going to conduct business using the web means that they will have these third-party agents go out there and say, please plan our anniversary trip to fill in the blank. These are our right and left limits. This is our budget. This is the thing. And this engine will go out, crawl all the websites, put an itinerary together. You tweak it, you do whatever. But there is an opportunity that if you trust this thing enough, you're not going to click the website of the resort yourself as a human. Am I hearing this correctly? This is what I'm getting from this conversation right now. And I'm a little geeked out because what are people paying for their websites? What are people paying to present themselves online? If we're doing it the wrong way, it's a little scary.
Yeah, the good news is you still need all that information out there.
Sure.
And the footprint of your website provides these agents information, but also the things that you do off your website provide these agents information. And so traditionally, you would put in a search. And so let's just say plumber. I live in Charleston, South Carolina, the best plumber in Charleston, South Carolina. And so traditionally, that is a keyword phrase that you would optimize your website for. And then it would return back a bunch of blue links, right? So there's 10 links on page 1. They're blue links. And you would choose which one of those you believe matches what you searched for. And there would be some paid slots in there, right? There's also the map pack that's in there. For those of you familiar with SEO, you recognize these terms. What's happening now is someone will either use AI mode, they will talk into their phone, whether it's through Siri or some other search. They may use Perplexity. They may use ChatGPT and ask the same question. And the way that you become visible is now in a variety of different places. Yes, there are still going to be people who put in the search, they will look at the blue links and they will decide. So yes, you still need your website. But what happens when an AI search, it's not that one-to-one keyword result. What happens in the background of AI is it does its first query, and then it starts to fan out, and it provides a larger profile of what is going on. And it also remembers your behavior, Dawn, and your interaction with these. And so we could be in the same city a block down the street, and I could do a request for Italian restaurant, and you could do a request for Italian restaurant, and it will probably give us different answers because of contextual cues that it knows about our differences and what we want. You may be accustomed to fine dining, white tablecloth, candlelight. I might be looking for easy takeout, and it's going to know all of that. And so in the end, it is a more personal approach to the result as opposed to a keyword query that we're used to. And so all of this personality that flavors into what we're talking about, a personal brand, can also be part of that conversation. And if I want a more formal approach to the results, then if there are some clues about the personality of the brand that are better for me than you, then ultimately you're going to get clients that are more suited to you, and I'll get more clients suited to me because of all these things. Because in the end, whether it's Google or AI, they want to do the best to get you what you want as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Now, my wife and I just took a trip. We celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary, and we'd never been to London. And so we planned a trip, and we used a travel agent. And through this process, my wife was verifying some things through ChatGPT. She said the next trip that we go on, we will probably use AI to plan that trip because of the wealth of information. Now, that doesn't destroy the person who is planning these trips, but that person needs to be included in the process of the discovery or the answers that are generated. And if you don't, I would say the likelihood that you're invisible very soon is probable.
Okay. So the plus side of this, if we were going to call it a plus side, is if we do everything correctly, we are being, I'm going to use the word referral, even though we may not be in this context. You're going to have a better match to your ideal clients because
Correct.
these are the people that are looking not just for your business, but for your personality, your business's personality, so your referral base, I think I would say becomes stronger. So maybe your close rate becomes higher because these people are expecting to complete whatever they were searching with the top answer. So that's fantastic. You want to talk about having to filter through the ideal client avatars and all the things and having to put things out there specifically. What you're saying is, yeah, actually, we could get two different answers, which is great because the business owner is going to be matched to more likely buyers, right?
Yeah.
So the conversion is probably, and I don't know, do we have enough data to know whether or not conversion's higher or lower from AI suggestions? Do we have any data on that? Or it may be too early.
That is a good question. I will dig into that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I would venture that very quickly we could see that your referral close rate is maybe higher from the people coming from AI because they have a level of trust in the AI generation, but then they also get, like you said, depth and richness about your company and you and how you do service and how you do products from the AI. So this conversation turned into, why do we need a personal brand? To holy moly, you're going to be invisible. I don't know how I feel about that. To be honest. Normally we go in and I do a little research and know a little bit about it, like AEO, GEO, that kind of thing, so that I don't sound completely ridiculous. But to hear that is if you actually don't consider doing this, you could be an invisible online, except unless somebody purposely goes and looks for you, like in Google, your presence online could be potentially invisible in just a couple of years. So again, if you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, steer properly. But if you are like listening at home, let this just kind of sink in a little bit. And by the way, the goodness in this is the effort to convert, right? The cost to acquire, those kinds of things will probably go down, way down, and you'll have a higher conversion rate, more ideal matches. On the flip side, if you don't do this and you do not step into this fully, you could become invisible unless somebody directly searches. So is that accurate, what I just said?
It is. And thank you for that temperature check because I'm in this all day, every day. And I didn't want this to be a scared straight episode. People may have remembered that TV show from long ago where they
Years
took
ago.
kids, and put them in a situation where they talk to prisoners to stay out of prison. But yeah, I would say it's something as a business owner that, again, you can take it as a negative or you can take it as a positive. And I always look at it from the optimistic point of view that this is a great opportunity for you to communicate exactly who you are to your ICP. And it's an advantage that you have over folks who are not really paying attention because it is moving very quickly. If you are freaked out about what to do next, I could give our audience a couple of things that they could focus on. Would that be helpful?
Definitely. So let's just I think we're going to end up doing a part 2 on this, to be honest, because we're coming up to that 45 minutes here in a minute. But I think that the awareness that's coming out of this episode and then the next things to do are great. And then I definitely want to do a second one because I want to deep dive into what is AEO? What is GEO? Why isn't OpenAI or Perplexity or whatever just doing it like Google did, right? Why aren't they just doing the crawling for the most popular or the most this or the most that?
Sure.
And then like, why are the models so different and returning such different results? I think that could be helpful too for people to understand sort of how they're thinking, like how AI is thinking. There's still so many people that use AI like Google and it's fun to watch, but it's not. Google is not. All right. So let's focus on, this is episode 1. We're going to call it like awareness. You need a personal brand. AI is going to make it great. And then at the same time, if you don't play, there is an opportunity for you to become invisible. We'll do that. So what are the next steps though, that you can take once you listen to this episode and you realize we haven't even thought about?
Yeah. I would say many of these have trial subscriptions like Perplexity and Claude and ChatGPT. You don't have to pay. You could go to Google right now and switch it into AI mode. Just Google your business, Google your name, put that into ChatGPT, put that into Perplexity. I would say Perplexity is an interesting one. It actually has up-to-date content, up to the minute updates, where ChatGPT is a little bit delayed. And so just try out different LLMs. They're called large language models or generative engines, and see where you are, see if you're showing up. And again, it could change depending on the day and the time and all of that. The next thing is I would look at your website, and if you don't have a frequently asked questions or an FAQ section, create one. This is actually beneficial because most of these answer engine, let's call them the optimization you need to do to be the one that is part of the answer. It searches for questions and answers. And so look at what are the common questions that your customers ask or a prospect ask, and then put those in your on your website in that way. And I would say make sure it's a separate page. That would be one thing.
Okay. So when you're saying FAQs, you're saying FAQs about the business itself. So here's what I just want to clarify. I can hear it now because I just thought it myself. I was like, yeah, but Google has our open hours, right? So why would I want to put the FAQs on my website since I know, and you've said that they're also searching Google? Is it because it's, again, that authority and the website is owned by the company itself? Because when we update Google or we don't update Google, is there a different authority if it comes straight from your website?
Yeah, I think this might be more in the technical part two of what we're doing, but there is what's called a domain rating or a domain authority, which actually ChatGPT can't really see, the same thing that Google can see. But there is a ranking or a rating of how powerful your website is. And so when your website is the authority about all the things about your business or your industry, and this information is on your website in a very organized way and not just included within a blog post, it's easier for these AI bots or even Google to find that information quickly. It's not going to go digging. It's not going to pull paragraphs out as efficiently as if you simply have the question and have the answer. It's very easy for all of these sources to then mine that data. And I would say that's the reason for the structured approach to an FAQ. And yeah, it's not just about your hours. I talked about plumbing before.
Yeah.
It could be simply, how do I know I need a plumber instead of using liquid Drano from the supermarket? That's a very long question, but that's the way people are asking questions into their phone now. That's the way people are asking Siri. That's all of those things. And then provide a very detailed answer, not just because we're the professionals and you need to hire us. It should talk about erosion of your pipes. It can talk about what's bad about some of these chemicals, what's good about some of these chemicals, so forth and so on. I'm not a plumber, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
Think in detailed, specific answers that are factual and rely on the experience you have as that business to provide the behind the scenes education that people are searching for. And again, there's a camp that says, but if I give away all the information, they're not going to hire me. I would say, don't worry about that. That probably wouldn't be your customers to begin with. You know.
Yeah. As far as people looking at it and saying you're too much or you're too this or you're too that, there's a market for everything, even Snoop on the Stoop, which was the elf on the shelf with the dress.
Right.
So I'm like, there's always a market. Okay. So where can people find you? Because we're gonna call it part one. So we have awareness of what's coming on. You want to go in, you want to Google yourself. You want to take your business name, you want to Google it. And then you also want to start developing the FAQs. And if there's no about us page or a page about ownership or experience or any of that, probably want to add that as well. If you do not have about us, about our plumbers, for example, about our great people, probably want to add that. So I think if we stop here, we say, there's your homework. But how can they reach you with any questions or whatever? Because we are going to do a part 2 and we're going to get deep into this because I really think that this would help so many business owners who are hearing a lot of different opinions about what AI is going to do and whatever. But really, in our world, for our purpose, we just still want to be able to be seen and we want to be recommended. I don't think that's going to, that need as a business to be seen, to have awareness of what we do and to be recommended, I don't think that changes in any way.
No, it's just a little bit new game. I'll tell you, I have a gift for the listeners. If you go to my LinkedIn page, and it's Jimi Gibson, Jimi Gibson, and I'll also give you the link, Dawn. I created for this very reason a 7-day email course on exactly this. And so in between episodes, if people did that 7-day course, it takes about 5 minutes to read the email. You can implement things right away that would take maybe 45 minutes to meet with your team and go through it. It's not a sales pitch. Certainly would be happy to speak with anybody about their challenges, but that's not the focus of this little email course. And I think it would fill in a lot of gaps for folks and probably give us a lot to talk about. People could bring questions maybe that they would send to you and we can answer those. That might be fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. So get the book, drop your questions. I will bring all of these questions to our part 2 recording. And we will put the link down below for you, your company, and of course, the course. And thank you so much. So in full disclosure, we thought this was going to be just like an update. Why do we need the personal brand? What's going on here? And then really, though, I feel like as much information as we're receiving about what AI and stuff is going to do, I think a lot of it has been almost weighed heavily towards consumers and what consumers like and what consumers don't like and the scores that they get if they use a chatbot for customer service. And I don't know that it's been as much of a, hey, business owner, I can see you online or I can't see you online. I sincerely appreciate you bringing this topic up because it's incredibly important. Thank you so much. We'll be here for part 2 and go do the course, drop all of your questions here, and we will have a part 2 very soon. And thank you, Jimmy, so much for having this part 1 conversation.
Great. Thanks for having me, Dawn.
All right. We'll talk to you in part 2 on the Business Mastery Podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to DawnKKennedy.com. And you can now check us out on YouTube as well as, of course, any of your favorite platforms that host podcasts. Take care.